Yeshayahu, or Isaiah, chapter 1. The vision of Yeshayahu, son of Amoz, which he saw concerning Yehudah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziyahu, Jotham, Ahaz, Hizkiyahu, sovereigns of Yehudah. Hear, O heavens, and listen, O earth, for Yehovah has spoken. I have reared and brought up children, but they have transgressed against me. An ox knows its owner, and a donkey its master's crib. Israel does not know. My people have not understood. Alas, sinning nation, a people loaded with crookedness, a seed of evildoers, sons acting corruptly. They have forsaken Yehovah. They have provoked the set-apart one of Israel. They became estranged and gone backward. Why should you be stricken any more? You continue in apostasy. All the head is sick, and all the heart faints. From the sole of the foot to the head, there's no soundness in it. Wounds and bruises and open sores. They've not been closed or bound up or soothed with ointment. Your land is laid waste. Your cities are burned with fire. Strangers devour your land in your presence. And its laid waste is overthrown by strangers. And the daughter of Zion is left as a booth in a vineyard, as a hut in a garden of cucumbers, as a besieged city. Unless Yehovah of hosts had left to us a small remnant, we would have become like Sodom. We would have been made like Gomorrah. Hear the word of Yehovah, you rulers of Sodom. Give ear to the Torah of our Elohim, you people of Amorah. Of what use to me are your many slaughterings, declares Yehovah. I have had enough of ascending offerings of rams and the fat of fed beasts. I do not delight in the blood of bulls or of lambs or goats. When you come to appear before me, who's required this from your hand to trample my courtyards? Stop bringing futile offerings. Incense is an abomination to me. New moons, Sabbaths, the calling of gatherings, I'm unable to bear unrighteousness and assembly. My being hates your new moons and your appointed times. They are a trouble to me, and I'm weary of them. And when you spread out your hands, I hide my eyes from you. Even though you make many prayers, I do not hear. Your hands have become filled with blood. Wash yourselves, make yourselves clean, put away the evil of your doings from before my eyes. Stop doing evil. Learn to do good. Seek right ruling, reprove the oppressor, defend the fatherless, plead for the widow. Come now, and let us reason together, says Yehovah. Though your sins are like scarlet, they shall be white as snow. Though they are red like crimson, they shall be as wool. If you submit and obey, you shall eat the good of the land. But if you refuse and rebel, you shall be devoured by the sword, for the mouth of Yehovah has spoken. How the steadfast city has become a whore. I've filled it with right ruling, righteousness lodged in it, but now murderers. Your silver has become dross, your wine is mixed with water, your rulers are stubborn and companions of thieves. Everyone loves bribes and runs after rewards. They do not defend the fatherless, nor does the cause of the widow reach them. Therefore, the Master declares, Yehovah of hosts, the mighty one of Israel, I shall be eased of my adversaries, and I shall be avenged of my enemies, and I shall turn my hand against you, and shall refine your dross as with lye, and shall remove all your alloy. And I shall give back your judges at the first, and your counselors as at the beginning. And after this, you shall be called the city of righteousness, a steadfast city. Zion shall be ransomed with right ruling, and her returning ones with righteousness, and the destruction of transgressors and of sinners is together. And those who forsake Yehovah shall be consumed, for they shall be ashamed of the terebinth trees which you have desired. And you shall be embarrassed because of the gardens which you have chosen. For you shall be as a terebinth whose leaf fades, and as a garden that has no water. The strong shall be for tow, and his work for a spark, and both shall burn together with no one to extinguish. Chapter 2. The word that Yeshayahu the son of Amoz saw concerning Yehuda and Jerusalem. And it shall be in the latter days that the mountain of the house of Yehovah is established on the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow to it. And many people shall come and say, Come, let us go up to the mountain of Yehovah, to the house of the Elohim of Yaakov, and let him teach us his ways, and let us walk in his paths. For out of Zion comes forth the Torah, and the word of Yehovah from Jerusalem. And he shall judge between the nations, and shall reprove many peoples. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither teach battle any more. O house of Yaakov, come and let us walk in the light of Yehovah, for you have forsaken your people, the house of Yaakov, because they've been filled from the east and practice magic like the Philistines, and they're pleased with the children of foreigners. And their land is filled with silver and gold, and there's no end to their treasures, and their land is filled with horses, and there's no end to their chariots, and their land is filled with idols. And they bow themselves to the work of their own hands, to what their own fingers have made. And the lowly bows down, and the high is humbled. Therefore you do not forgive them. Enter into the rock, and hide in the dust because of the fear of Yehovah and the splendor of his excellency. The lofty looks of man shall be humbled. The pride of men shall be bowed down. And Yehovah alone shall be exalted in that day. For Yehovah of hosts has a day against all that is proud and lofty, against all that is lifted up, so that it's brought low, and against all the cedars of Lebanon that are high and lifted up, and against all the oaks of Bashan, and against all the high mountains, and against all the hills that are lifted up, and against every lofty tower, and against every strong wall, and against all the ships of Tarshish, and against all the desirable craft. The loftiness of man shall be bowed down, and the pride of men shall be brought low, and Yehovah alone shall be exalted in that day. And the idols completely pass away, and they shall go into the holes of the rocks and into the caves of the earth from the dread of Yehovah and the splendor of his excellency when he arises to shake the earth mightily. In that day man shall throw away his idols of silver and his idols of gold, which they made, each for himself to worship, to the moles and bats, to go into the clefts clefts of the rocks and into the crags of the rugged rocks, because of the fear of Jehovah and the splendor of his excellency, when he arises to shake the earth mightily. Cease from man, whose breath is in his nostrils, for in what is he to be reckoned upon? Chapter 3. For look, the Master, Jehovah of hosts, is turning aside from Jerusalem and from Yehuda. The stock and the store, all the supply of bread and all the supply of water, the mighty man and the man of battle, the judge and the prophet, the diviner and the elder, the commander of 50 and the highly respected man, and the counselor and the skilled craftsman and the clever enchanter. And I shall make youths their heads, and children shall rule over them. And the people shall exert pressure, man on his neighbor, the young rise up against the older, and the lightly esteemed against the highly esteemed. When a man takes hold of his brother in the house of his father by the garment and says, Come, be a chief over us, and let this ruin be under your hand, he shall swear in that day, saying, I am not a healer, for in my house is neither bread nor garment. Do not make me a chief of the people. For Jerusalem has stumbled and Yehuda has fallen, because their tongue and their doings are against Jehovah, to provoke the eyes of his esteem. The look on their faces witnesses against them, and they declare their sin as Sodom. They do not hide it. Woe to their being, for they have brought evil upon themselves. Say to the righteous, It is well, for they eat the fruit of their doings. Woe to the wrong, evil, for the reward of his hand is done to him. My people, youths exert pressure on them, and women rule over them. O my people, your leaders lead you astray and swallow the way of your paths. Jehovah shall stand up to plead, and is standing to judge the peoples. Jehovah enters into judgment with the elders of his people and its heads. It is you who have eaten up the vineyard. The plunder of the poor is in your houses. What do you mean by crushing my people and grinding the faces of the poor, declares the Master, Jehovah of hosts? And Jehovah says, because the daughters of Sion are haughty and walk with outstretched necks and seductive eyes, walking and mincing as they go, making a jingling with their feet. Therefore Jehovah shall smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion, and Jehovah expose their nakedness. And that day Jehovah takes away the finery of the anklets, and the headbands, and the crescents, the pendants, the bracelets, and the veils, the headdresses, and the leg ornaments, and the sashes, and the perfume bottles, and the amulets, the rings, and the nose jewels, the costly robes, and the cloaks, and the shawls, and the purses, the mirrors, and the fine linen, and the turbans, and the large veils. And it shall be, instead of a sweet fragrance, a smell of decay, and instead of a belt, a rope, and instead of well-set hair, baldness, and instead of a festal robe, a girdling of sackcloth, and branding instead of loveliness. Your men shall fall by the sword, and your strength in battle. And her gates shall lament and mourn, and she deserted shall sit on the ground. Chapter 4. And in that day 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, We shall eat our own food and wear our own clothes. Only let us be called by your name to take away our reproach. In that day the branch of Jehovah shall be splendid and esteemed, and the fruit of the earth shall be excellent and comely for the escaped ones of Israel. And it shall be that he who is left in Zion and he who remains in Jerusalem is called set apart, everyone who is written among the living in Jerusalem. When Jehovah has washed away the filth of the daughters of Zion and rinsed away the blood of Jerusalem from her midst by the spirit of judgment and by the spirit of burning, then Jehovah shall create above every dwelling place of Mount Zion and above her gatherings a cloud, and smoke by day, and the shining of a flaming fire by night. For over all the esteem shall be a covering and a booth, for shade in the daytime from the heat, for a place of refuge, and for a shelter from storm and rain.